Cool, cool, cool. All
All
right,
right,
everybody ready?
here we go.
Hello, hello, welcome everyone.
We gonna rise up till it's won. We gonna rise up till it's won. When the people rise up, the powers come down. When the people rise up, the powers come down. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. We gonna rise up till it's won. We gonna rise up till it's won. When the people rise up, gonna rise up till it's won. When the people rise up, gonna rise up till it's won. When the people rise up, but we keep coming down. They try to stop us, but we keep coming down. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. Woo! They try to stop us, but we keep coming back. They try to stop us, but we keep coming back.
All right, hello everyone, welcome, welcome. Welcome to today's All In for a Bold Emissions Cap organizing call. We are going to be spending the next hour talking strategy for our plans to win a bold emissions cap in advance of the policy being dropped in a little bit less than a month. So it's a really exciting time. It's a really critical time. We're so happy that all of you are here. We're going to start to get the ball rolling, but as we do, would just invite you to take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat. You can share your name and your pronouns, where you're calling in from, and then anything that brought you here today, whether that's, you saw an email or you're really concerned about the climate crisis. Yeah, whatever comes to you, feel free to drop it in the chat so we can get a bit of a sense of who's in the room. And it's so nice to see all of the names rolling in from all across the country, from Kingston and Edmonton and Halifax. Welcome to all of you. Yeah, I'm so excited to begin to get down to work to win a bold emissions cap. So my name is Kate. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a staff member with Leadnow, and I'm going to be leading today's organizing call along with Rivka, who is another one of our staff members at Leadnow. Also on the call, we have Jessie, who's our chat moderator. If you have any questions, you can direct them to her, and she'll be happy to help you find an answer. And we also have Tim on tech. So welcome. For anyone who's just joining, we're just inviting folks to introduce yourselves in the chat. And Tim, if I could get a click. All right, so before we dive in, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the many territories that we're all calling in from. Land acknowledgements always feel a little strange over Zoom because we all come from different territories. We all have different relationships to those places depending on whether we're settlers or indigenous to those lands, and the stories of how our families came to be there. But especially when we're engaging in this conversation about the emissions cap policy and the fight to win real climate action in Canada, it's so important to ground that conversation in a recognition of the fact that colonization is a project that has led us to the climate crisis that we're currently facing. The extraction of resources from land was only facilitated by by the removal of Indigenous peoples from those lands so that they could be exploited. And so when we talk about winning climate solutions for all of our communities, Indigenous sovereignty has to be at the heart of that. And land back to Indigenous peoples is the best climate solution we have. So if you don't know a ton about the territories that you are living within, I would direct you to native-land.ca. It's a great resource to find out just a little bit more about the lands that you're situated in, and a great way to start the conversation. So before we go further, just a couple quick housekeeping notes. You are welcome to keep your camera on. It's really nice to see all of the energy in the room, all the faces on the screen. You're welcome to use the chat box to ask questions or make comments throughout the next hour. And then you're also welcome to enable closed captions in the bottom bar of your Zoom screen if it helps to have the visual aid while we're talking. So for the next hour or so that we'll spend together, we're going to be sharing a little bit of context about the emissions cap policy, why it's so important, why this is a critical period to be mobilizing for it to be better and stronger and more ambitious. And then we're going to be getting into some of our plans to turn up the heat for a strong emissions cap policy over the next month before the policy is due to drop. So before I hand it over to Rivka to dive into that, I would just love to quickly poll who's in the room. And I would just invite you to put a plus in the, or no, sorry, an exclamation mark in the chat like this. If you've taken action for a better emissions cap campaign before, whether it was an MP meeting or a petition or a calling party. So just put an exclamation mark in the chat if this isn't your first time dipping your toe into the emissions cap issue. Wow, look at that. Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Okay, yeah, seeing lots and lots of exclamation marks coming into the chat. Lots of informed and engaged people. And then I'd love you to put an X in the chat if you are impatient for the Liberals to up their climate ambition. Just full stop. You're ready for the Liberals to up their climate ambition. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Lots of X's. Great. So just to say, whether you're getting involved in the emissions cap campaign for the very first time, or you're just here because you're ready to see real action on climate, you're so, so welcome. We're so glad that you can be here, and we're ready to bring this fight home with all of you. So with that, I will pass it off to Rivka.
It is so amazing to see this many people here and to see all of the energy in the chat and in all of the videos on screen for a strong emissions cap. This is something that is really important to the Leadnow community. It's something we've been fighting for a while, and we are so excited to be ramping it up in this last stretch before the policy comes to fruition. So yes, I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Rivka. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a campaigner at Leadnow. I'm calling in from Toronto on the land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. And I'm, as I said, very excited to be helping everyone come together, ramping up our campaign in the just about a month that we have before this first draft of the emissions cap policy goes public. So as we've seen from all of those exclamation marks in the chat, and as we know from the support of the Leadnow community, if you're on this call, you probably already know at least a little bit about what an emissions cap is and why it's important. But we want to give some context to get everyone on the same page about not just why this fight is important, but why this fight is so important now, because we really are at a super key moment in the climate crisis and in the fight for a climate safe or safer future. So an emissions cap is a policy that would place a limit or cap, hence the name, on pollution, on carbon emissions. And it's a policy that was originally supposed to be released by the Liberals in late 2022. but it has been delayed, and now it is due to be released in early June of this year, 2023. So early June, just about a month from now, which is why we're ramping up the pressure, because after all the delays we've seen and the lobbying that we've seen from big oil trying to fight back against this policy, we want to make sure that this promise is actually seen through, and that it's seen through well, that we have a strong emissions cap policy, the one we deserve and the one that we need for the future of our communities and of our planet. We know that capping pollution, and specifically capping pollution from the oil and gas industry, is our best shot at tackling the rising carbon emissions in Canada. Oil and gas companies are the root cause of emissions and of the climate crisis, and we know that they won't regulate themselves, which is why we need to lobby so hard for the government to put a strong emissions cap in place. Oil and gas emissions are not just the biggest, but also the fastest growing source of emissions, despite climate promises that we've seen from some greenwashing oil and gas companies. We have also seen their emissions continue to grow year over year, and fossil fuel projects continue to expand. So it's never been more clear that a handful of fossil fuel companies are the main thing holding us back from the climate progress that we need. For over 2 decades now, Canada has been setting targets for emissions reduction, trying to address the climate crisis. But for over 2 decades now, not a single one of these targets has been met. Again, not a single one over 2 decades. So clearly the targets themselves are not enough. We need policy backing those targets to ensure that they actually happen. We have a chance to change this, to actually meet our climate targets, but it's only going to happen if we can cap carbon pollution from the oil and gas industry. And that has to come from external pressure, and that pressure has to start with us at the grassroots. The emissions cap, we know, is an effective tool to rein in the rising oil and gas pollution, and it's supported by most people in Canada. A strong majority of Canadians want a cap on carbon pollutions from oil and gas. A recent poll had 7 out of 10, or about 70% of Canadians, in favor of an emissions cap, ensuring that the fossil fuel industry takes on its fair share of the climate effort when compared to other Canadian sectors and compared globally. And nearly 9 out of 10, almost 90% of Canadians, want the federal government to match or give more financial support to the renewable energy sector compared to the oil and gas sector. So this support for climate action, for moving away from a dependence on fossil fuels in our society and our economy, shows that we, the public, people in Canada, know that this is the right step forward. But the fact that we haven't been meeting our climate targets and our emissions reduction targets so far shows that it's on us to get loud and ramp up the pressure in order to actually make that happen. We've seen oil and gas companies lobbying really hard to weaken and delay climate policy, and that includes the emissions cap. An emissions cap policy would make oil and gas companies actually take responsibility for their pollution, for their emissions, and for the decades that they've spent either ignoring climate science or actively misleading the public about the science behind climate change. So if we want them to take accountability for those actions, we're going to need to match or outpace the resources and the energy that they put into lobbying the government. We've seen that oil and gas lobbyists meet with Canadian politicians up to 7 times a day, which is incredibly disproportionate to those statistics I just cited about how the majority of people in Canada actually want us to give less resources and less energy to the oil and gas sector. So like I said, majority of people in Canada want this. The public is leading on this issue. And we know that this wouldn't just be good for the climate, it would also be good for our economy. Based on research, an emissions cap would actually increase economic development. So strong climate action that would be taken if we had less emissions coming out of the oil and gas sector could drive growth in the energy sector and drive job growth specifically, helping to create over 700,000 more energy jobs if Canada were to stay on track to reach net zero by 2050. And an emissions cap will make companies invest in new projects, things like low-cost efforts to stop methane leakage, which is one example of a new project that would create a lot more jobs. And we hear a lot of fear around if we take strong climate action, it'll stall economic development or it'll stall job growth. And a lot of that comes specifically out of the province of Alberta. But we've actually seen from recent research that even if there were an 80% cap on emissions, which would drastically change the energy sector, Alberta's GDP would be expected to continue to grow at 1.9%, which is higher than the national average. The national average of GDP growth is 1.8% per year. So the same cap of 80% by 2030 would see average households spending less on their energy costs, so that's heating, cooling, transportation, because of the long-term savings that are caused by clean energy solutions. So it's not just about making the planet better. The arguments we hear about job growth and economic growth are also actually improved by taking strong climate action and by capping emissions. Really, there's just a complete irresponsibility of big oil lobbyists who are fighting against an emissions cap, because it's not just hurting the planet, it's also hurting Canadians and it's hurting our communities. So resistance to the emissions cap is based on fear, not on economic or scientific reality. And it's our job to make it clear that the real thing we should be afraid of is the climate impacts we'll see if emissions continue to grow unchecked. Climate impacts are already damaging our planet, of course, but also our economy. We've seen from scientists saying recently that if we don't act now, we can expect climate impacts to get worse. And it's already cost Canada $25 billion in GDP losses between 2015 to 2025 because of climate damage that has happened in the past almost a decade now, since we're almost at 2025. And it's predicted that if we stay on the path we're on of repeatedly failing to meet our climate targets, that by 2050, costs from climate impacts could go up to $101 billion, not overall, but per year. So we've already started to see more extreme weather events, more impacts of the climate crisis, especially on the most marginalized communities. But these impacts and these effects are only going to get worse year over year. And this is why we need to act now. We need real climate solutions for our communities, and that has to start with placing external limits on emissions from the oil and gas sector. This draft policy of an emissions cap could really be a turning point. It could be the thing that sets us on a path to start meeting those climate targets that we've repeatedly failed to meet over the past 2 decades. But that's only going to happen if we hold the Liberal government accountable to the promises that they've made to fight for climate solutions and to fight for those emissions reductions targets. We know that this is in the best interests of Canadians. We know that this is in the best interests of our communities and of our planet. And it's only going to happen if we really put that pressure on the governments to match and exceed the lobbying being done by the oil and gas industry. So the stakes are high, but we've already seen so much energy from the Leadnow community. We've had meetings with MPs across the country, and some of them have committed to stand up for a bold emissions cap, and some of them haven't yet. And that's why we're planning this really exciting month ahead of us to continue to put that pressure. And I'll pass over to Kate to explain what we're going to do to keep that pressure up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rivka. So like Rivka said, this next month is going to be a really critical period of influence for the emissions cap policy. For those of you who have been around on the emissions cap issue for some time, you'll know that the first draft of the policy was originally supposed to be released at the end of 2022. It's been delayed time and time again. And now it's looking like it'll be released in June, right after the end of the Alberta election. And for months and months, the Leadnow community has been organizing on this issue. We've been hosting MP meetings, we've been hosting calling parties, we've been making phone calls and writing emails, and trying to raise the temperature on Liberal MPs as much as possible. Because what's so exciting about this policy is it's the first policy coming from within the Liberal caucus that shows genuine promise. For years, they've been saying that they would pass a strong cap on emissions. And so we have this really narrow window of time to make sure that it's the best possible version of the emissions cap possible, as opposed to one that panders to the interests of big oil. But as Rivka was mentioning, we know that big oil has been going hard to make sure that this policy doesn't actually place any real restrictions on their emitting. And it only makes sense. They only stand to gain from continuing to destroy the planet, and they only stand to lose from real climate action. But what we know is that right now, a lot of Liberal MPs are more afraid of the political price that they might pay for holding a small handful of fossil fuel companies accountable than they are of the consequences that they'll face from their constituents and their voters alike if they continue to delay action on climate change. And we're seeing this even with the timeline of the emissions cap policy's release. The Liberal government is waiting until after the Alberta election because they're worried that if they speak out on climate or make progress on climate during the Alberta election, it will hurt progressives' chances in the province. So we know that the Liberal government is scared of this handful of fossil fuel companies. And it makes sense. We know that big oil has launched an aggressive lobbying and marketing offensive to convince our politicians and the general public that we're dependent on them for everything from jobs to techie climate solutions that we already know don't work. Some of you may have seen that Pathways Alliance, which is a marketing campaign funded by the biggest tar sands companies in Canada, has been pushing false solutions and trying to present themselves as climate leaders. We know that it's all spin and lies, and we know that the fossil fuel industry has no place in a healthy world. But right now, they have money to back those lies up. And the reason that we're all here today is because the only thing powerful enough to go up against fossil fuel money is organized people like us. So we need to shift the equation, and we need to show our MPs that they owe it to us, the people who elected them, the people they represent, to take the climate crisis seriously, and that they owe nothing to the 5 fossil fuel companies that are holding our futures hostage. So again, that's why for months, Leadnow members have been ramping up the pressure on MPs to pass a strong emissions cap. We've been showing up, we've been showing out. Many of you have been involved in calling parties or MP meetings, but now we're in this really critical moment where we need to show the breadth and the strength of the movement for a strong emissions cap. So we need to show them that we're a force to be reckoned with, that has as much power, that poses as much of a threat to them as the fossil fuel industry. So that is why we are hosting a distributed day of action called All In for a Bold Emissions Cap on May 25th, with rallies taking place outside MP offices all across the country to call for a bold emissions cap ahead of the policy's release in June. And we know that days of action like these have huge power. Just last month, some of you may have been involved in the Fossil Fools Day action targeting RBC, which is one of the biggest funders of fossil fuels in Canada. And there were dozens of actions all across the country. Hundreds and thousands of people showed out, and a ton of media attention came out of that mobilization, which was just regular people in cities all across the country rising together on one day to call RBC out for its dirty business practices. And same goes for days of action we've hosted in the past, like a massive day of action against the TMX pipeline. When we're able to show up in this way and show that there's power all across the country, from big cities to small towns, it sends a really powerful message that people are paying attention and that people are willing to show up because they care. So that is why we are hosting this day of action on Thursday, May 25th. And that is why we've invited you all to this organizing call, because it won't be possible without your help. So I'm going to briefly share a little bit about what we're imagining this action is going to look like. And then we're going to make a couple asks of all of you who are here on the call today. So for this day of action, we are going to be asking folks to gather outside MP offices all across the country. And we have a toolkit of different tactics that you can use to send your message home. So the first is we're inviting people to deliver a plant to their MP offices with a note about how plants are the only carbon capture technology that works, in a little bit of a cheeky response to fossil fuel companies that are pushing for their own faulty carbon capture technologies as a way to opt out of the emissions cap. We're going to invite you, if you would like, to make speeches outside your MP's office talking about your own personal stake in a climate-safe future. Especially for folks who know that your MP is already sympathetic to the emissions cap, you're also welcome to invite them to come and speak and really position themselves as an ally on the emissions cap issue, because the more liberal MPs we're able to position as allies on this issue, the more likely it is that other liberal MPs will be willing to go to bat for a bold emissions cap as well. So plant deliveries, speeches, sign waving. We have some draft messages that you can use if you want to make signs for your action. You can wave them, you can leave them outside your MP's office. You can wave them at passing cars to get them to honk in support and solidarity. And then we also have some messages that you can use if it's a nice day and you want to do some chalking outside your MP's office to send a really strong visual message as well. So the vision for this action is to have just dozens of actions across the country, everyone united in this message that we need a bold emissions cap now. And yeah, and we need all of you to do it. So what we are going, I'm gonna walk you through the process for signing up to host a local action, and then we'll give you the opportunity to do it. So if you are feeling like you can take up this torch of signing up to host a local action, we're gonna share a link with you in a little bit where you'll have an opportunity to do just that. Once you've signed up to host an action, you'll receive an email with a link to register your action and sign up for a support call. You have to do both in order to have your action approved. And then once you've done that, we'll share a toolkit with step-by-step instructions for organizing your action, and we'll help recruit people to your action in your riding. And we'll also be running 2 trainings in May on how to run an action and how to attract media attention, and we'll be on call to support you as needed throughout the planning process. So we have a big ask for all of you, which is to host these MP actions on May 25th. And we're turning to you because we know that you are the engine of moments like this. We can't do it without volunteers all across the country who have the courage to send a message directly to their MPs and to come together to demand the climate action we all know we need and the climate action we know we all deserve. So with that, I will pass it off to Rivka, who will get you signed up to host a day of action on May 25th.
All right, this is the moment we've been waiting for, the ask itself, what we have come here to do. So we are going to be putting a link in the chat, and that link is to sign up to host an event outside of your MP's office for our day of action. As Kate explained, we'll have a support call with you to make sure you have everything set up. We have a toolkit with all of the things that you might need for this action, all of the messages that we want to make sure are getting delivered. And once you sign up, we'll send you an email later tonight, and that'll have the link to register your event and schedule that support call with someone from our team. And you might be wondering if there's someone else in your area who signs up in the same riding. Don't worry about that. When you fill out this form now, you can let us know what riding you're in. And if multiple people sign up from the same riding, we'll connect you with each other and make sure that everything is coordinated so there is one event to recruit people to in that riding. So yes, I can put the link up now and we can get signing up on it. Yeah, and we'll wait a few moments to see how signups come in. And as that happens, we'll let you know what the events are starting to look like. This is not you don't have to have all the details ready. You don't have to have the exact location of your MP's office yet. We'll coordinate with you to make sure you're all set up. This is just saying, I want to participate in the day of action on May 25th for a strong emissions cap. And, you know, if you know people in your area, if you're part of, when people are introducing themselves, we have folks from some organizations who are here. If you want to recruit other folks in your area to come, that's awesome. But we'll also make sure that we're promoting all of the MP office actions for that day of action to be happening. We'll promote them to Leadnow supporters who are in that area, so that we'll get a good turnout at each location. And we've seen this with Days of Action in the past. It's a great way to not just, you know, take action in your community, but meet people in your community as well, so that we can keep up this pressure for a strong emissions cap. All right, so we're already starting to see the first couple of actions. There are 3 so far, 4 more popping up as I'm speaking. Every time I said a number just now, a new name popped up. So now we're up to, it looks like 6 sign-ups so far for people to host a day of action. And that's literally just in the time that I've been talking, which is incredible. Oh, there's another one. All right, 7, 8, they keep on coming in. So let's see, we're looking at Kingston, we're looking at some in a couple from Vancouver, which is awesome. We'll make sure people are connecting there. This is great. Okay, yes, I think, is that 10? I think we just hit 10 actions, which is incredible. Overall, our goal that we're hoping for, and of course we can get past this, is 30 signups for events happening on May 25th. I think if we could get to 20 in this call today, that would be incredible. So we're already past 10. And we're going to try and get to 20. If people want to keep filling out that form from the link in the chat. Okay. All right, we're up to 16. So if we just get a couple more people, we'll have met our 20 sign up goal for today. And that'll make it really easy for us to jump to 30 actions across the country, which is definitely enough to get some real media attention and pressure put onto the government. All right, I think that's, wait, let me double check. Is that 16? Okay. So the meetings mentioned, the trainings, we'll be sure to send information out about that to everyone who has signed up. So we won't be sharing those Zoom links right now, but this is the first step. And once we have everyone's signups, we'll coordinate and follow up and make sure that you have all the information that you need. Okay. Oh, another one just came in. That's amazing. All right. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, we're so close to 20. Thank you so much to everyone who's signing up. And yes, there's the link again. If you lost the link, it's just put in the chat just now. It's the airtable.com form, and we'll just ask you to sign up. All right. If we get one more sign up, we'll have met our goal for 20. That just came in. All right. Shout out to Peter, who just submitted the sign up. That was 20 actions so far. Please continue to sign up, and we'll also be emailing out this link over the weekend. Oh, all right. There's more coming in. So we hit our goal. We surpassed it. We got to 22 signups so far, which is incredible. Of course, there are well over 22 MPs in this country. So if you have not signed up so far, please continue to do so. And if multiple people signed up in your area, we'll let you know where the action is happening so that everyone can make sure to show up on May 25th and come together for what's going to be, I can already tell, an incredible day of action. All right, back to you, Kate.
Oh my gosh, I am blown away. Thank you to all of you for stepping up and taking leadership. This is what power is. It's just people showing up and doing the thing, even if it's your first time, even if it's a little uncomfortable. This is how we create change, is when people just decide to do something big, even if it's a little scary. So thank you to everyone who just signed up. Please continue to sign up. We also have a participant sign up form. So if you were not able to sign up to host an event, but you would like to stay in the loop and make a commitment now to come to an event in your area, you can also sign up in that form. In terms of next steps, we are going to be sharing an email with all of you who signed up to host an event. We'll have a link that you can go to register your event, and then a link that you can go to set up your support call, where you'll get a down low from our Leadnow support team on how to run your event, and answering all of the ins and outs. So if you, so just a reminder that signing the form doesn't mean your event is live. You're going to need to register your event, and then have that follow-up call in order for your event to go live. But we'll be following up right after this organizing call with all the information on that. Otherwise, if you would like to participate in an event, we'll be sharing lots of information in the days and weeks to come about how to do that. And there will be other opportunities to continue supporting the fight for a strong emissions cap over the month of May. So I just want to say an enormous thank you again to all of you for stepping up in this really critical moment. We're all here because we have something to lose in the face of the climate crisis, and we have something to gain in building a better, more just, and a climate-safe world. And that is the thing that binds us all together, even as we take action across the country, from Halifax to Vancouver, as we saw in the chat. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to wrap up the call here, and if you would like to stick around and ask any specific questions you have about an event, or if you can host, or whatever it is, we'll be here to chat for a little while longer. But to the rest of you, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the streets on May 25th.
We're up to 26 signups. You all are incredible. So thank you so much. This is a fantastic response, fantastic energy already. Yeah, like Kate said, if anyone who has questions, please do stay. We'll spend the rest of the hour answering any questions that folks have about hosting an event. But yes, there is the form to participate in the chat again, so make sure to sign up there as well. And we'll make sure that everyone has all the information they need in a follow-up email from this call. So feel free to stick around for questions, but you have all the information in those forms, and we'll be sure to send those out so that you can get our actions planned. Thanks so much, everyone. This is an incredible group here tonight.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, and if anyone who's sticking around has questions, we would be super happy to answer them now. And Doug, I see you've had a hand up for a while. I'm just going to allow you to unmute, so you should be able to ask it.
Okay, so I just unmuted. I tried to sign up to host, but it didn't work. But I would like to host a event in Moncton if no one else has.
That would be wonderful.
Also, do you just want Liberal MPs to be visited, or is it any type of MP?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because I know it came up a couple times in the chat. Liberal MPs are the ones that have the most influence over this legislation, so it's most important that we meet with Liberal MPs. That said, a big part of this day of action is going to be showing our strength in numbers, and hosting actions in as many places as possible. So if you live in an area where you don't have a Liberal MP and you're not close to a Liberal MP, you're very welcome to host an action outside your own MP's office. And you might just need to tweak your messaging a little bit to reflect the fact that they're not the ultimate decision maker. I would say if you are in an area where you're in an NDP or a Conservative or a Bloc riding, but there's a Liberal riding nearby, we would encourage you to join up with them instead of hosting an event in your own riding. But that's going to depend based on where you are in the country and whether you have access to a Liberal riding nearby. Thanks for that question.
So So do you have to be a Liberal to go to the riding of a Liberal, or can you? Okay, so
Definitely not. No.
in Moncton, the person we would visit would be a Liberal, and in my riding, which is quite a ways from Moncton, it would be a um, not a Liberal. It would be a sorry, I never think of this
Conservative?
yes, that's the word I'm looking for. But it would be a waste of time going to see him, quite frankly. I mean, he's been in charge of that riding for what, 20 years, and there's no hope that he's going to be moved to support I'm also quite old and sometimes have problems with words. So when I give a speech, I read it. I don't, I don't. So
You're getting lots of.
yeah. So anyway, he wouldn't be. Pardon me.
You're getting lots
He
of.
wouldn't
lots
be.
of
He wouldn't be willing to change his point of view. So I think our event would be at a Liberals riding, at a Liberals riding, but we wouldn't be all Liberals.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, that's the correct instinct, to go for the Liberal riding. And if you have the option, and you definitely do not need to be a Liberal to go to a Liberal's office and hold them accountable. All of our elected representatives are accountable to their constituents, regardless of whether or not we voted for them. And so, yeah, we're all entitled to have that dialogue with our MPs.
Yeah, and often though the MPs are not interested in talking to someone who isn't in their riding, right? So I think what we would probably do is have the person that goes to talk to them, someone from that riding, even though they're not the person who's organizing it. But I guess that's okay.
Totally, yeah, and that's a great instinct as well, that if you have some people in your group who are from the riding, it's a great way to establish credibility. But also, you don't have to engage with your MP for this action. It's enough to show up outside their office and make noise, and any photos you take of the action will tell the story for you. And no one can tell what riding you're from. Were there other folks
Okay.
who had questions or comments? Oh yeah, I see.
You folks hear me or no?
Yeah, I see Ken. Hey.
I'm sorry. You can hear me, Ken?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, Kate and Rivka. I wonder if you could send me, I think we've spoken before, or communicated before, certainly Kate. I wonder if you could send me a message with your emails. The reason I would like that is, I'm not sure whether you saw what we did. The discussion document on this issue was put out on the 18th of July, and I immediately set to work making a toolkit for the climate messengers. And we campaigned on this till the 30th of September, when the first public consultation closed. I have some concerns about what you folks figure might be the next step in the process, because I think it might be different. I would also perhaps communicate with you in an email or on a separate Zoom call about a couple of other issues in the process. If that's enough for now, I think.
Yeah,
what
we'd
I
be
would
happy.
suggest, sorry, Kate,
Oh, go
is
for it.
rather than them email you their email addresses, why don't you just private message one of them your email address?
Yeah, I
That
can do.
would be way simpler.
Yeah, Ken, I can also reach out
Well,
to you.
Lynn,
I can also reach out to you on Slack, since since I know you're in the volunteer Slack. For folks who don't know, the climate messengers do really wonderful climate communications work and policy work, and have been really active on the emissions cap along with a bunch of other issues. So yeah, would love to keep the conversation going. Thanks, Ken.
no, that was Linda. You said that's so much simpler, but I just don't know. I'm a Luddite.
Okay, Ken,
I'm gonna give it a try here.
open up your chat box. You'll
Yeah,
see
no,
it'll say,
I might have it. I might have it.
you see it'll say everyone, but then you can scroll down and you can click on either Kate's name or Rivka's name and send them your email address, and none of the rest of us will see it.
Oh, it's so complicated. I might have done it. I might. Kate, can you see a message
It was
there?
done.
All right.
Email is
That's
gone.
I hope we can speak in the next few days. Thank you much.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Linda Ruth, for jumping in to help there.
Been on Zoom 12 years, know what are the tricks.
We should get.
Did anyone else have questions? If you'd like to put your questions in the chat as well, we can also read them and answer them from there. Okay. We will, as Kate said, and as I said, we will be in touch with everyone who signed up. So if you have specific questions about a plan you might have for an action, a tactic you want to try out, or if you're wondering how to get in touch with people in your area, we will be on deck to help with all of that. But if there's any more general questions about the day of action, we'll leave a minute or two here for that now. And if there aren't more questions,
I think
yeah,
I see
okay.
Shannon off mute.
Go ahead, Shannon.
Okay, well, it seems like that might have been everything. So we'll just say once again how excited I am and all of us at Leadnow are to see this many signups and to see all of the places across Canada where we have actions already planned, and we know that number is only going to grow over the next couple of weeks. So really excited to see what you all do, and thank you so much for coming tonight and for signing up.
Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you soon.